So, one model that's helpful to think about how we experience grief as time goes on is the growing around grief model by Tonkin, which I like to call the fried egg model. And you'll see why in a moment. The idea is that we have an expectation of how grief changes. And so, if we start off with a circle, which represents our life before grief, there's no grief in it at the moment. What happens when we experience a significant loss is that this whole circle gets filled in with this dark colour that represents the pain of loss and the grief. What people often expect is that over time, that pain will shrink and change. And so your life goes relatively back to normal, and you might still have some grief there, but it's got much smaller, and your life is pretty much what it was before. What Tonkin suggests is that actually what happens, you have this original circle, and then you have this second circle where grief clouds and consumes kind of your whole life. That's normal, as was seen before. And then what happens is that instead of that shrinking and changing, that very much remains a huge part of your life. But what does happen is that your life grows around it. And you'll see from the image why some people might refer to that as the fried egg model. Now, I wanted to make this a little bit more personal, think about what this actually looks like in someone's life. And so I've created my own version. I actually created this while I was at university myself. I think this was back in 2019 when I put this together. I have drawn at different points in my life what this circle looks like for me. And you'll see at the beginning, I've written grief in my life when it happened. And I'm referring here to when my brother died when I was 10 years old. And you can see that it's almost like that second circle where everything is just black and dark, and grief is really consuming every part of my life at that point. I've then got grief in my life 6 months on, and you can see here that, it's still quite a dark drawing, but there's elements of colour coming in. I've written something here which says a glimpse of normal, my life is finding shape. But I've also written too soon for growth, lots of grey, lots of silence. The third image is captioned grief in my life 2 years on. And you can see the way that grief is presenting itself in my life is really changing. There's a lot more colour. The circle is actually getting bigger. The very fractured parts to the first circle that you saw are starting to kind of take form again. And I've written normal life, normal life, normal life, growth, strength. There's still silences, greys. Sometimes my strength slips away. And then the fourth circle that I'd drawn is grief in my life 10 years on. And this is a much bigger circle, representing the way that I feel like I've grown. And the words that stand out are joy, love, growth, strength is also in there. But you can still see that it's not perfect. It's not that pain has completely gone away or that grief is no longer present in my life. It's just that it's no longer the whole of my life. And this is very much how I think about it in both my personal experience, but also in my work with students, in that it's not about getting rid of grief. It's not about trying to fix it or trying to shrink it, but really thinking about how it can exist alongside your life moving forwards and who you are as a person and how you are growing and expanding.